The case of the Rev. James Cleveland may best epitomize the magnitude of the silence.
According to Wikipedia, in February 1992, Cleveland's then foster son, Christopher Harris, filed a lawsuit against Cleveland's estate, claiming that Cleveland allegedly sexually abused him over a period of 5 years and infected him with the HIV virus, which he claims Cleveland contracted through same-sex liaisons.
Christopher Harris certainly feels that way. When he was 13, Harris was the only boy alto in the choir at Cleveland's Los Angeles church. He was strapping 6 feet tall and looked 20. Cleveland was a giant in the industry. He wrote more than 400 songs, recorded more than 100 albums, 16 of them gold, and won 4 Grammys. He founded the Gospel Music Workshop of America and mentored a young Aretha Franklin. When he died in 1991 at age 59, 6,000 attended his funeral. Harris has HIV. It has its moments, but mostly it doesn't affect me unless there is stress, said Harris, who is Cleveland's former foster son. Harris once went by the name Christopher Cleveland. That was before he filed suit against Cleveland's estate alleging 5 years of sex act that ended with Harris testing positive for HIV. Legally, I became his, he said in a telephone interview from his home in Los Angeles. The case was settled out of court. The terms prohibit him from discussing the settlement. But he is free to discuss his life with Cleveland. I went to his church. He looked into my face and saw my dreams and he used it, he said. I wanted to sing, I didn't want to be like him. He promised that he would help me. He just played it to his advantage, he used my naiveness to his gain, Harris said. Harris said his sex micro-al encounters with the older singer were not molestation. Nor, he said, were they his first such encounters with a man. He says that they were typical of the secretive lifestyle of many of the people to whom he was exposed. People in Cleveland's inner circle knew, people at church knew, he said. But they pretended it didn't exist. I guess what you don't see you can't say. But I can. No. He didn't die of heart failure. Heart failure is just a delusion, Harris said, nearly laughing. He hesitated. Let's just leave it at that. No aid for the afflicted. What makes the Black gospel community one of America's last bastions to confront AIDS epidemic is its vibrant yet underground homosexual subculture. First of all, they deny the homosexuality, Harris said. Then if something else like AIDS comes along with it, they haven't dealt with the first part. So of course they can't deal with this. You would think there would be more compassion. They are very, very cruel. Behind their backs and from some pulpits, gays are called punks, sissies and even girlfriend. We sing their songs and shout and get happy off their music, but condemn them privately, said the Rev. Yvette Flunder, former lead singer of the Walter Hawkins Love Center Choir of Oakland, California. Such pejorative attitudes, say critics within the community, are behind the silence that has musicians and choirs appearing at AIDS benefits for other affected communities, but holding paltry few for their own. I've been on the air for 17 years and not once has anybody approached me about doing an AIDS announcement of religious program to support or a benefit, said George Witcher, host of TCI Cable's Gospel Expression show and manager of Jay Caldwell and the Gospel Ambassadors. Understanding the nature of our business, the Good News never condoned homosexuality or sex micro-al promiscuity of things that perpetuate the outbreak of disease, said Rev. Mitchell Taylor, director of promotions for Savoy Records, the oldest traditional gospel label. That's why you don't see benefits, because it's almost like sanctioning it. Flunder's concert in San Francisco last December, which drew the titans of Billboard magazine's gospel music chart, was a rarity because it included acknowledgement that those singing were among those dying. When more than 1,300 gospel music lovers attended the Gospel AIDS benefit at Tindley Temple United Methodist Church in Philadelphia in April, they were treated to performances by some of the finest names in regional and national gospel music. Tony Award winner Melba Moore and gospel veteran Dorothy Norwood were among the performers who lauded the audience for supporting Action AIDS, Philadelphia's largest volunteer-based AIDS organization. But throughout the 5 hours of singing, dancing and clapping, no one from any of the 12 choirs got beyond the generic admonition that no one is immune from this disease, to acknowledge that they had lost members to the disease as recently as this year. The only group to publicly return its performing fee was the Wilmington Chester Mass Choir. Alan Bell, publisher of Block, a Los Angeles-based magazine for lesbian and gay African Americans, said the record companies are in the best position financially to establish a fund for a community it has richly mined. The silence often makes Black gospel community AIDS patients put off seeking medical treatment. They go off in seclusion, just like a sick animal of something, said one Wilmington minister who denies persistent rumors about the nature of his own health problems. Matter of fact, you heard of the term a loner. That's what they become. They are ashamed to go to places that provide help. Flunder calls these people, church burned. She sees them when they come for classes and services offered by the Ark of Refuge, an agency she founded in San Francisco to provide housing, education, training and care partners for HIV/AIDS patients. Flunder said she has a harder time convincing churchgoers with AIDS to seek health care than other AIDS patients. When they come for services, they usually already have full-blown AIDS, she said. Very often, these are men who grew up perfecting three-part harmony in high school and church choirs. Men like Gregory Cooper, a personal attendant to gospel legend Sally Martin and a protege of Cleveland and Thomas A. Dorsey, the father of gospel music. He didn't hang out on the corners. He would go around taking folks out of their classes so they could go to rehearsal, Judith Cooper, of Chicago, said of her late son. Being stereotyped as an AIDS choir is a growing concern. That's why some choirs require prospective members to supply a letter certifying church membership and a recommendation from a pastor. Some go as far as rejecting tenors with short-cropped hairstyles, studded fingernails and too much body swishing to avoid being stereotypes as a gay choir. Bobby Jones, host of a syndicated gospel music program watched by more than 4 million viewers each Sunday, speculates that James Cleveland's career might have been ruined if followers believed he was HIV positive. Jones acknowledges that some viewers may be watching his Sunday program to see which choir director is losing weight. Yet only once has a musician said on the air that his sickness was due to AIDS. That was Judith Cooper's son. It was during a Gospel Explosion concert in Barbados more than 2 years ago that Gregory Cooper, a musician in Jones' choir, talked about the disease. It made front-page news there the next morning. Then he did it on my show in the United States, and people prayed for him, said Jones, who presided over Cooper's funeral in Nashville last September. After his backup singers and local choirs performed at the funeral, Jones invited Judith Cooper to speak. She introduced workers and an AIDS volunteer, who ended the funeral by talking about methods and rates of transmission of the disease. That was my idea, Cooper said proudly. And a very rare one, said Rev. Hobbs, who advocates turning gospel concerts into forums for AIDS education. Delaware's Tracy Shai said she feels ready to break her silence at solo concerts and address the issue. I'm bursting, she said. We're making our lives short.
As you come on to the page, kindly hit the like bell and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so as yet. And don't forget to put on the notification bell so you can be notified when I drop the next video. Thank you. Here is what some subscribers are saying.
I heard these rumors when Cleveland died. I think they tried to say he died from complications of diabetes or some crap. I also heard that Monique, Hezekiah's ex-wife, called Hezi *** while arguing with him in a hotel during a gospel convention. Shortly after that they were divorced. I had heard of it. It was also said that Aretha Franklin's father was gay too. There are probably way more than we know. What's even more legendary is how some of these homosexual saints molest and abuse both young boys and girls that are so naive. They truly admire and look up to these people as leaders, and they're really just evil, in my eyes. It was said that one of Aretha's children was by her own father. Has anyone else heard this? I hope this is just a rumor. But men back in that era were known to commit this kind of heinous act. Nowadays, they are put on blast quick, fast and in a hurry. Nasty as is. C.L. Franklin was a heterosexual pedophile. He fathered Aretha's oldest son.
Allegedly.
His best friend, James Cleveland, was a homosexual pedophile that died from AIDS.
Allegedly.
He had quite a few nephews that he liked to travel around with. Yet, very few people will talk about Bobby Jones and the amount of sugar in his tank. I hope that most people realize the amount of sugar in Bobby Jones' tank and just keep it moving. But no one talks about Donnie McClurkin either, and how he says the church saved him from his homosexuality. Or how he occasionally backslides, pun so intended. Oh man. That says it all right there. Then there is Kirk with his P Delta RN, some of it was probably male. Shirley with her lesbian lover.
Allegedly.
Tonex with his, well, just look at him. BB is as queenie as they get.
Allegedly.
His exploits ended his marriage. And I always raise an eyebrow at TD Jakes. He can be a bit Miss Thangish at times. Although I have never heard anything about homosexuality with him. Just that he is real extra. This is a damn shame, and these people claim they are doing God's work. Again, examples of our people brushing things under the carpet. Personally, I think it's hypocritical. If you're sitting there claiming that God loves everyone but homosexuality is wrong and you're gonna go to hell for it, don't you realize that what's coming out of your mouth contradicts itself? I know plenty of people who love Jesus or Allah or Buddha or whoever and are openly gay, comfortable with themselves and with their love for their own higher power that they believe in. So why can't these people in the black church do the same? BC, they're ashamed. People might shun them. Those people shunning them might not buy their music or pay to see them preach, so there's lost income. Whatever the case, so, a lot of them lost my respect a long time ago. I always hear about Yolanda Adams having attitude problems. Even with the problems that James Cleveland had,
his music still lives on.
She's the Queen of Soul, known around the world for her powerful voice and iconic hits. Aretha Franklin passed away the 16th of August at her home in Detroit after a reported 8-year battle with pancreatic cancer. However, behind the glamour, the 76-year-old singer has lived a dramatic life, from her teenage pregnancies to an orgy-loving father, alcoholism and abuse, according to David Ritt's 2014 book, Respect.
Allegedly.
When it came to pure sex, they were wilder than me, and that's saying something. In those days I had a thing for orgies, but I had to be the only cat in the room with 2 or 3 chicks, he told Ritz. The gospel people didn't think that way. The cats liked it with the cats and the chicks liked it with the chicks, and no one minded mixing it up this way or that. Ray's claims were backed up by R&B and gospel singer Billy Preston, who said, "It was the church crowd where the vibe was wide open. It was anything goes. In the community outside the church, gay men were called sissies. But inside the church, a lot of the music was created by gay men." With her parents divorcing during her formative years and her mother dying when she was just 10, Aretha was close to her father CL and was introduced to adulthood early, perhaps unsurprisingly given his controversial lifestyle. She was said to have spent time in a hotel room with late soul singer Sam Cooke when she was just 12, and fell pregnant with her first child with school friend Donald Burke that same year. She had a second son named Edward just 2 years later. Still relatively a child herself, Aretha handed over a lot of the childcare responsibility for her sons to her grandmother Rachel and older sister Irma while she pursued her music career. By 19, Aretha married her manager, Ted White, who allegedly introduced the singer to weed and alcohol. While Aretha has previously denied reports of alcoholism, she has spoken openly about her smoking habit, which she kicked in the 1990s. Despite welcoming a son, Ted Jr., in 1964, rumors of domestic abuse flew in her booking agent and friend. Everyone knew that Ted White was a brutal man, her sister-in-law Earlene told Ritz. But Aretha, she's always clung to this fairy tale storyline. She wanted the world to think she had a storybook marriage. She was having all those hits and making all that money. She was scared of rocking the boat, until one day the boat capsized and she nearly drowned. And her friend Ruth Bowen claimed Aretha was so unhappy that she turned to alcohol, food and cigarettes for comfort. Aretha was using booze to numb the pain of her lousy marriage. Liquor was just making her sloppy, Ruth said of the star, whose hit Respect topped the charts in 1968, just as her personal life was imploding. In May 1967 she fell off stage in Columbus, Georgia, and broke her arm, with Ruth claiming it was because she was drunk. While living with Ken, she allegedly enjoyed an affair with the Temptations frontman Dennis Edwards, who later accused the legend of treating her boyfriends like her servants. The pair split in 1968, and after apparently regaining control of her drinking, Aretha fell pregnant again, this time by her road manager Ken Cunningham, with their son Kecaf arriving in March 1970. Meanwhile, plagued by cripplingly low self-esteem, her insecurity prompted Aretha's jealousy of other female singers, including Roberta Flack, Barbra Streisand, Gladys Knight, Dionne Warwick, Diana Ross and Natalie Cole. She was afraid she wasn't good enough as a singer, pretty enough as a woman, or devoted enough as a mother. "I don't know what to call it but deep insecurity," her sister Carolyn said. After duetting with Whitney Houston on It Isn't, It Wasn't, It Ain't Never Gonna Be in 1989, Aretha declared, "Whitney lacked my wisdom and maturity as a recording artist." Even in her later years, Aretha was determined to remain the Queen of Soul. She didn't hold back with her opinion when Beyoncé introduced Tina Turner as the Queen at the 2008 Grammy Awards. I am not sure of whose toes I may have stepped on or whose ego I may have bruised between the Grammy writers and Beyoncé. However, I dismissed it as a cheap shot for controversy. Her sister Irma, who died in 2002, summarized, Aretha's always had problems with her female contemporaries. Her fantasy is that they would all disappear and she alone would be the only singer. Her fantasy is to eliminate the competition. By the late 1970s, Aretha appeared to be happier after finding love with second husband, actor Glyn Turman, and left Atlantic Records for a new deal with Clive Davis's Arista Records. However, their coupling didn't last long and they split in 1982 with Aretha fleeing back to Detroit. It wasn't long before Aretha suffered further heartbreak when her beloved father CL was shot twice at his Detroit home in 1979. He remained in a coma for 5 years before eventually dying in July 1984. Professionally, things were good at Arista as she enjoyed a series of hits, including I Can't Turn You Loose, Jump to It, Who's Zoomin' Who, and Freeway of Love. Although her singing talent is undeniable, Aretha's business sense was lacking and she ended up in trouble after frequently failing to turn up for gigs or forgetting to pay bills. Authorities threatened to foreclose on her Detroit mansion over an overdue tax bill, which the singer speedily resolved. In 2015, she faced a similar threat in Oakland, California, over her $700,000 home due to late bills. Over 20 years ago, Aretha had to settle out of court after she was sued by the Saks Fifth Avenue department store over $262,851 in credit card bills. One addiction Aretha wasn't able to hide over the years was her love of food as her weight ballooned. However, after a health scare in 2010, Aretha overhauled her lifestyle and lost 85 pounds. Reflecting on her weight loss, the singer said, I have diabetes, really, from years ago when I was really badly and grossly overweight. Now, I'm back to my natural size and thrilled about it. After losing even more weight in 2017, Aretha admitted, I've lost a lot of weight due to side effects of medicine. It affects your weight. The lid on Aretha's private life was lifted 4 years ago when her official biographer Ritz decided to write his own tell-all book about the diva, entitled Respect, The Life of Aretha Franklin. Ritz co-wrote the star's 1999 autobiography Aretha from These Roots, but in later years claimed the book was a failure, and full of enormous gaps and oversights, because all the juicy details were off-limits by the singer herself. Aretha Franklin's sons awarded her former homes after will found down back of her sofa. Aretha Franklin's 2 sons have been awarded ownership of her former homes 4 months after a jury said the will, found down the back of her sofa, was valid under Michigan law despite scribbles. Franklin had signed it and put a smiley face in the letter A. This will override the singer's handwritten will from 2010 that was found at her suburban Detroit home around the same time in 2019, according to the judge. One of her sons, Keith Franklin, will get that property, which was valued at £900,000 million in 2018 but is now worth more. A lawyer described it as the crown jewel. Before trial, another son, Ted White II, who had favored the 2010 will, was given a house in Detroit. However, it was sold by the estate for £236,000 before the dueling wills had emerged. Teddy is requesting the sale proceeds, said Charles McKelvey, an attorney for Keith Franklin. Judge Jennifer Callahan awarded a third son, Edward Franklin, another property under the 2014 will. Aretha Franklin had 4 homes when she died of pancreatic cancer in 2018. The discovery of the 2 handwritten wills months after her death led to a bitter dispute between the sons over what their mother wanted to do with her real estate and other assets. One of the properties, worth over £900,000, is likely to be sold with the proceeds divided among her 4 sons. The judge noted that the 2014 will didn't clearly specify who should receive it. This was a significant step forward. We've narrowed the remaining issues, said McKelvey about the ongoing estate saga. There's still a dispute over how to handle Aretha Franklin's music assets, though the will seems to suggest that the sons would share any income. When Aretha fell pregnant at the age of just 12 years old, such was her father's reputation, that rumors began circulating that he was the baby's dad. The disturbing reports were noted in David Ritt's 2014 biography Respect, The Life of Aretha Franklin, along with other bombshell revelations about her life and loves. Aretha fell pregnant at the age of 12, Image Daily Mirror. Ritz claimed Aretha's sexual awakening came at very early age thanks to her father C.S. Lewis' notorious orgy church, that Ray Charles once dubbed a sex circus. High on the Holy Ghost, dancing in the aisles of New Bethel, the saints celebrated the love of Christ. High on wine and weed, the party people celebrated the love of the flesh, claimed Ritz. Growing up in such a promiscuous environment, left Aretha with a high sexual appetite and she jumped straight into adulthood with glee, he added. When she was 12 years old, Aretha was introduced to 23-year-old singer-songwriter Sam Cooke, who later penned You Send Me About Her. Ritz tells in his biography how Aretha had joined Sam in his Atlanta motel room, and afterwards he claimed he enjoyed a lot more than her legendary voice. 2 months ahead of her 13th birthday, Aretha gave birth to her first child, a baby boy she named Clarence after her own father. Despite much speculation about her romantic life, the child's father was Aretha's school friend Donald Burke. She then had another child when she was 14 years old by Edward Jordan, who her brother called a player. Despite being a mom of 2 by 15, Aretha set her sights firmly on a career in music, with her grandmother Rachel and sister Irma taking charge of her children. At some point she started seeing her love life like a soap opera. She began writing a soap opera script, just making up fantasizing about men and relationships that never existed. That became a new pattern for her, making up stories about these beautiful love affairs that happened only in her mind, she said. But refusing to give up on love, Aretha got engaged to longtime companion Willie Wilkerson. The pair had got engaged twice before, and Aretha called things au-fait between them again in 2012. Harboring ambitions to become a famous pop singer, Aretha dropped out of school and fell into the arms of Ted White, a renowned detriot pimp, claims Ritz. Her brother Cecil told the biographer, Aretha wanted to make it as a pop singer in the worst way. Renowned ladies man White was said to have seen something in Aretha, making her his wife when she was 19 years old and helping her land a record deal, with a vision of her becoming a huge success in the future. Aretha never gave up on her dreams. The couple went on to have Aretha's third baby boy, named Ted White Jr., but it was far from a happy home. Ritz revealed the Respect singer started drinking heavily, using booze to numb the pain of her lousy marriage. Then at a gig in Georgia in 1967, Aretha came tumbling off stage and broke her arm. While she said it was down to the bright lights, her friend Ruth Bowen blamed it on her excessive boozing. Despite her troubles, Aretha stuck by her husband. She wanted the world to think she had a storybook marriage, said sister-in-law Earlene, who was married to her brother Cecil. She was having all those hits and making all that money. She was scared of rocking the boat, until one day the boat capsized and she nearly drowned. Aretha finally kicked White out in 1968, but that didn't stop her, self-medicating with booze. She was drinking so much we thought she was on the verge of a breakdown, revealed sister Carolyn. But as Aretha's career grew, so did her ego, according to Dennis Edwards, lead singer of The Temptations and her part-time lover. She was the queen of soul, and I think at times she saw her boyfriends like her servants, he said. In 1969, Aretha then fell pregnant with her fourth child by road manager Ken Cunningham, who invited her to live with him. She gave birth to her youngest son Keith Cunningham in March 1970. Then 1977, Aretha fell head over heels for film star Glynn Turman, and they tied the knot a year later. Despite their whirlwind romance and seemingly glamorous lives, Aretha's friend Ruth Bowen revealed she was far from happy below the surface. Aretha gets up every day and starts creating her own reality, she said. 6 years after their wedding day, Aretha and Yin divorced in 1984. Growing up in such a promiscuous environment left Aretha with a high sexual appetite, and she jumped straight into adulthood with glee, he added. I don't care what she was telling Ebony about her happy home life. I knew it was just a matter of time, said Ruth. Inside Aretha Franklin's wild love life, Queen of Soul fell pregnant at 12, had 4 kids by 4 men, and treated lovers like servants. The legendary soul singer, now 76, is said to be gravely ill. Her family gathered to say their last goodbyes.
According to CBS News, according to a statement released by her family, Franklin died from advanced pancreatic cancer of the neuroendocrine type.
Aretha Louise Franklin, Aretha, March 25, 1942 to August 16, 2018, was an American singer, songwriter, and pianist. Honored as the Queen of Soul, Rolling Stone magazine has twice crowned her as the greatest singer of all time.
As you leave the page, don't forget to hit the like bell and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so as yet. Thank you for watching.